Hello everybody, it's Aspen Pittman coming to you from my recording studio, and we're going to show you a new product today that is truly revolutionary, groundbreaking technology. It's under the patent Centerpoint Stereo. It inhales a stereo signal and it exhales a big wide stereo sound field everywhere in the room from a single box. Everywhere literally becomes the sweet spot. This is the Spacestation V3. It's our latest model, and we're here today to show you how it works. Let me explain a little bit about the Centerpoint Stereo technology, our utility patent that we discovered some years ago with my partner, my friend Drew Daniels, who came to me with this incredible idea, and we developed this product together. To understand how this produces stereo everywhere in one box and solves a major problem of listening to stereo, perhaps it's important to understand why traditional stereo doesn't work in live venue. As most of you know, stereo is a left and a right speaker. The left speaker and the right speaker have different information in them, but some of it's the same. And to understand how to hear stereo traditionally, which you pretty much already know, you have to be where the speakers converge. Roughly a 30-35 degree angle from the two speakers where the waves come together and you hear left and right in balance. That would be called the sweet spot. However, in a live concert performance or playing an instrument live, we can't position the whole audience to line up in a very small place in the middle of the room called the sweet spot. We usually don't use stereo. The reason is it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Kind of understand what's happening. You have to picture sound visually, and I like to use the analogy of a pond, a still pond in the middle of the morning. And you drop one pebble in that pond. That could be a mono signal, and no matter where you sit in the pond, you're going to hear pretty much the same sound. Now eventually it's going to hit the shore and it's going to bounce back, and this little pebble, the ripples that it produces in a very symmetrical way spread out in the pond, anywhere you're going to hear, again, you'll hear pretty much the same sound. However, if you have two pebbles in that same pond and you were to drop them, let's say, a few feet apart, now we have two sets of ripples that are going to eventually come together. Now where they come together, that's the sweet spot. You want to be sitting in the pond right there. As they come together, the ripples ripple the ripples, and you have an artifact of the balance of these two sounds. So if you're sitting too far to the left, you're going to hear the left signal with some distortion from the right, vice versa if you're sitting too far to the right. So how does Centerpoint Stereo fix all that? Well, we changed the rules. As you will see, the speaker has a front-facing speaker, and it has a side-facing speaker. 2 amps, 2 speakers, just like a conventional stereo system, but instead of being identical and both in phase facing you, they're very dissimilar. The front speaker is much more elaborate. It carries the weight of the sound. The side speaker is there to create an effect, if you will, and I'll explain that effect. And very few sound engineers would ever tell you to change the phase of one speaker, but that's exactly what we do. Everything that's in the left and right signal that is the same goes through 1 amp and through the front speaker. Everything that's different, that is the far left or far right, goes through the side speaker. So front speaker is L plus R, everything that's the same, and side speaker L minus R, all things that are unique to left and right. So in the end, this speaker on the bottom has no information that is the same as the speaker in the front. Left and right speakers are in phase. Centerpoint stereo speakers are really out of phase, dramatically, perfectly out of phase. And as such, there's 2 different ponds in play now. So we have one pond that's got the mid speaker, that the one we're used to being in, and we're going to get the mono compatible or the mid signal, which is L plus R, and it's going to be in the pond we're standing in. And then there's this other pond that's vertical to that pond, out of phase, if you will, and it's going to get the side speaker. So its ripples are not affecting the ripples of the horizontal. They're like 2 magnets that won't go together. If you ever try to put 2 magnets together out of phase, they push each other away. That's what's happening. The technical name for that is a spatial vortex. And these waves, as they bounce around the room, they all emanate from one place. So they arrive everywhere at the same time, but they're very different. And they don't mix like a traditional left-right signal would mix. And that's the magic. And now that you've seen this amazing little box, I can tell you a little bit about it technically. It's 200 watts on both the 8-inch subwoofer and the 6.5-inch side woofer. So there's two stereo 100 watt amps. There are two stereo 40 watt amps because it has a mid-range coaxial, which we'll show you in a minute, and a super tweeter. Those are electronically crossed over, so we have a three-way front speaker system. It all is contained in a box that weighs about 40 pounds, and it inhales left and right from an iPod, from a PA, from a guitar rig or a keyboard rig. So it pretty much works for everything. Okay, one of the real challenges for us was to create a small box that put out a big sound. And to do that, we use special modeling techniques. We have the front speaker, which is in a ported bass reflex design. And the bass is supplied by this USA Eminence speaker that was specially designed for this project. It's called the CX2008. The affectionate name is the Acoustinator speaker, I believe they call it. It was designed for acoustic guitar amps. Small format, very large magnet. We put 100 watts into this speaker. The mid-range is supplied by a mid-range driver. This is a coaxial speaker. And we have another amplifier, a 40 watt amplifier on the mid driver. Looks something like this. 1-inch horn driver, something like you'd see in a small PA system. The woofer and the mid horn provide the dominant sound of the front speaker. There is a super tweeter added to that. So there's basically three sections to the front speaker. The woofer, the 8-inch high compliance, it's got a poly foam and a foam surround, rather a poly cone and a foam surround. The 1-inch horn driver, both made in the USA by Eminence. And then we have a high power foam surround full range 6.5-inch speaker that is one speaker for the side. And that again is a high power. We have a 100 watt amp on this 6.5-inch speaker. Together they make a very high SPL with no distortion. 4 amplifiers, a tri-amp, electronically crossed over front speaker with a woofer, mid, and tweeter, and then a full range side speaker, 6.5-inch side speaker. Those 4 speakers, those 4 amplifiers, all contained in the new Spacestation V3. That's new technology. We've built this box before, but we've gone all out with this one. Okay, now we're going to show you how the tri-amp system works. We have a speaker contour control on the back of the panel, one for the mids and one for the highs. It's an amplifier that we can adjust the levels depending on the room and the material you want to play through it. So I'm starting right now with the mid and the tweeter all the way off. I'm going to turn up the amplifiers one at a time. First the mid horn so you can hear it, and then I'm going to turn it down. Same thing for the super tweeter, up and then down. Then I'm going to kind of dial them in where I usually like to hear them, which is the tweeter pretty much all the way up and the horn around 50%. So here's a song we played before. Michael McDonald. I have my width set at about 50% right now. So now I will turn up the mid horn, quite bright, turn it down, turn up the sizzle tweeter all the way up, turn that down. Now I'm going to turn the horn up to about 1 o'clock, turn the tweeter up. Pretty much the sweet spot for this room. That can be adjusted for every room, your own instrument, the way you want to hear it. Interesting artifact from this is that it will actually go through doors, open doors, into the next room and even the room beyond. These signals still haven't mixed, and you will not lose the stereo sound field. I know that sounds crazy, and we get a lot of slapped foreheads because it's amazing. You can walk out of our big room into our control room, even out into the hallway, and you'll still hear the Leslie spinning. You'll hear the guitar decay going left and right. It's truly amazing. The stereo image never falls, it never fails, never collapses. It's almost a shame to call it stereo because it's not limited like stereo is to a sweet spot. It literally creates a sweet spot everywhere in the room, and that has a huge amount of advantages.
love it all the while, and I'll just keep on styling till it hurts, just as long as I'm on this side of the dirt.
Okay, so now we have a general understanding, general idea about how the Centerpoint stereo technology works. It's fundamentally different because of its out-of-phase speaker configuration and changes all the rules for producing stereo in a live venue or in any room for that matter. The benefits, however, are threefold. Okay, first of all, let's talk about what this technology means for the musician. Pretty much all keyboards today are stereo. Unfortunately, pretty much all keyboard amps are monaural. It's pretty much impossible for a keyboard player to expect to have a stereo amplifier that can be heard by everybody, including him, with the same dimension he'd have with headphones or in the studio when he's plugged directly into the board. So we bring along a little amp that has a good sized speaker in it, and we call that a keyboard amp, but it really isn't a great keyboard amp because it's monaural. And we can't hear all that great stereo processing. A guitar player may have stereo effects like chorus, delay, left, right, so many different things. He can't really play in a stereo amp either. Conventional stereo, as I explained earlier, is a failure in live performance. So we always play through a monaural amp. All these stereo effects we have in monaural don't sound anything like the record, which we all wish they would, but the technology has held us back until now. With Centerpoint Stereo inhaling a left and right signal and creating such a deep three-dimensional stereo sound field that it even sounds bigger than a Leslie, because unlike a Leslie, this will go around corners and into other rooms. This will go to the very back part of the room, and it'll give everybody in the place a real sense of the fact of a Leslie speaker spinning. Same thing for the big orchestral strings, same thing for a guitar player ping pong or a slapback effect. Everywhere the audience and the musicians and the fellow musicians sit, they're going to hear a three-dimensional stereo image like they've never heard before. So it really does solve the problem. I call Centerpoint Stereo the transmission for all those stereo engines out there that we all have and can't use. Okay, a quick demonstration on how the stereo speaker system works. There's basically two inputs on the back for left and right stereo, and there's two controls, the level control and the width control. The width is how much of the side speaker we're going to turn on to manipulate the front speaker. In a live room, we're going to need less reflective sound off the side speaker. In a very dead room, lots of carpets, lots of people, maybe acoustic ceiling, we're going to need a little bit more width. So we have a width control, which gives us an ability to balance the level between the front speaker, which is L plus R, and the side speaker, L minus R. So I'm going to demonstrate that. I'm going to start off with my width control turned off. So when I play this Leslie patch right now, the first thing you're going to hear is the Leslie with just the front speaker, how we would normally hear it if we were playing out in a club. By the way, the sound source here is a Native Instruments B4 patch, which is a series of Leslie simulations. It's their sample patch, so I'm going to play a left-right stereo patch from a Native Instrument program called B4. Now, I'm going to play it again, and I'm going to turn the width up. Tell me if you can hear this difference. That's 12 o'clock. Turn it off. Go back to mono. Back to 12 o'clock. If I push it beyond, almost too wide, back to about 12 o'clock, and all the way down. And of course, back to 12 o'clock, because that's where it sounds the best. So what if everybody in a band heard exactly the same mix, and it was a really nice, polished, finished stereo mix like you'd hear in a recording studio on playback? What if you heard that mix live in a room, and everybody in the band heard exactly the same mix? Well, it would make playing pretty easy. That would be kind of a dream come true. And in fact, Centerpoint Stereo is that dream come true.
They say there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay, now that was with no side speaker. I'm going to turn the side speaker up as we go on now. Tell me if you can hear when the side speaker's coming on, if you can feel the dimension of stereo.
And I heard that this night only lasts for a spell, but I'm starting to wonder how long I can travel.
Now that's 12 o'clock right now.
Out of this world.
Mono.
I keep putting one foot in front of the other,
Big wide stereo.
and trying to stay on my side of
true. Today, there are so many ways to take a guitar direct to a mixing console, a keyboard, even electronic drums. Of course, vocals all go through a keyboard mixer direct. And so all these can be mixed, outputted to a left and right signal like we do in a recording studio, and fed to one single Centerpoint speaker. That speaker can be placed anywhere in the room. It doesn't have to be on a pole. It could be on the ground in the corner. It doesn't have to be in the center. It just has to be somewhere where everyone can have a chance of hearing it. And it will produce a three-dimensional stereo sound field no matter where you stand as a performer. You'll be able to hear the mix. You'll know how loud your solo is or isn't. And once people acclimate to hearing this stereo in the room everywhere, it's a pure enjoyment for the performers because they know exactly what the audience is hearing, which is another big shortcoming of playing live. There's just nothing like it. I have so many people who have told me, having played out with this, that has changed the way that they play out, and they're playing out more now because it's fun again. It wasn't until, several years into having put these things in the field and had a lot of hands-on practical experience that I realized that we had a third benefit that was perhaps bigger than the first two. The audience. Guitar amp and a bass amp and a keyboard amp, maybe another guitar amp, the drummer, of course, the vocals. All of these going through the PA and the monitor create so much confusion and distraction and competition, if you will, in the room, ripples upon ripples upon ripples, that we can't talk above it. And we have to scream to be heard, or even order a beer at the bar. Okay, now a Michael McDonald song, and I've started with the width control off, there's no side speaker, and as I bring it up, you're going to hear that guitar part come up. Here it is in mono. There it is in stereo. Now something else I'm going to do, even though this is running at about 85, 90 dB, is I'm going to walk up to you. I'm going to be over here at the table. I'm only like maybe 6 or 7 feet away from that. And I'm going to have a normal conversation without raising my voice. I'm even going to be able to whisper, and you're going to hear every word I say. And that's the true miracle for the audience from Centerpoint Stereo. Okay, to sum up the benefits for the keyboard player, the guitar player, the whole band, and the audience, Centerpoint Stereo pretty much is groundbreaking technology. Nothing's ever done this before. You'll not hear anything like it. As effective as this demonstration may be, it's much more impressive in person, and I encourage you to try one of these. Now, where do you get one? It's the stereo transmission for all those stereo engines out there, and it's what I call the cure to a common gig. It'll make you want to play live again.
Baby, you should take a look around.